Well, as always, gang, here we are on a Tuesday, sponsored by Promar Ahi. And as usual, Michael Folks is joining me.
Thank you.
And today we have a phenomenal guest with us. He's been with us before. He's coming on the show today right before he drives out into the middle of the desert to go fish in his kayak and have a little Thanksgiving dinner with his family. But Chad from Hookup Baits, man, you've been doing a lot lately, haven't you?
Always doing a lot. I mean, it's what I do. I don't sit still well.
Michael, have you ever seen his Hookup Baits?
I don't think I have, Chad.
Yeah.
They're an amazing product. I mean,
It's
so many fish. We took a bunch of them to Alaska, and I'll tell you what, we were fighting over the last couple of them. We were running out of them after the fourth day, and we were like, okay, I get that green one. I get the chartreuse one today. Okay. All right. Well, I get this bit up brown root beer sucker today. And it was like, we're fishing with just the nub, and it didn't matter, boy. They were eating this thing. They were eating all of them. And then I had some little tiny ones I was fishing off the dock with. It was insane.
And that's fun off the dock, that like little bait.
Oh my gosh, those black rockfish are so aggressive. They just kill anything that swims. But oh my God, did they go bananas for that hookup bait? So Chad, why don't you tell Michael and I how you got into this fishing thing? Someone had to have taken you when you were little and got you all fired up, and then go into the Crappie John thing and everything later. But let's talk about the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, it's, of course, my stepdad was a fisherman, and he started taking me, early, 6, 8, 10 years old, all that kind of stuff. And I just immediately loved fishing. Always asking, when we're going fishing, when we're going fishing. But the main thing was the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up in Chino, California, back when Chino was all dairies and farmland and everything still. And my neighborhood was just a bunch of kids that loved fishing. I mean, and they were from ages 10 to 20, and we all fished together. That's what we did. It was like our neighborhood thing we did. We fished. And then, then doing that, we fished every body of water we could walk to, ride our bikes to, have our parents drop us off at. And then the older kids started getting driver's licenses. They started, driving to, all those who would pile in a truck and drive to a lake and fish. And that's what we did. That's the main thing that got me into fishing, was the neighborhood.
For people who don't know, Chad, Chino's a pretty flat area, isn't it? I mean, that's farmland up there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of bodies of water, is there?
There is. I mean, there's the Prado Lake. We hit Prado Lake a lot, and then Lake Los Serranos, which was a private retirement lake that had really big bass. I've gotten 12-pound bass out of there.
Ooh, sweet.
And so we would sneak in there until we get kicked out, and then every golf course within range and Pudding Stone, and then we'd go up to Big Bear and Arrowhead, and up in the mountains a lot. And then all the county lakes, when they start stocking trout, Glen Helen and Kaipa, all the Inland Empire lakes, we fish a lot. But then we fish Newport Harbor and Huntington Harbor for spotties a lot. Go shore pound or bring our float tubes there and do that a lot. So
that's my backyard, baby.
Yeah. So that's how I got started. It was just doing that, and then like Dave mentioned, we were at Prado Lake one day, and we're sitting there catching trout on the Velveeta cheese and rooster tails and stuff like that. And we're catching, okay, and this guy come down the shoreline just loud as can be, catching one fish after another, and he walked up to us and, hey boys, have you ever tried one of these? And gave us all a Crappie John finger jig, tied it on our line and taught us how to work it, and pretty much my fishing life changed from there on. That's all we used from there. And then after about 2 years of doing that, I started doing like a pro staff for Crappie John, where he would just, he would load me up with baits, and this is before cell phone and all that days, so it wasn't like you could text him and say, hey, where are you going next? It'd be like, you'd find him at a, you kind of learn his pattern and you just try to follow his pattern and hope to run into him at different lakes. You know, every time we run into each other once or twice a month. And he would load me up with jigs, and
Cool.
I would, make sure you're giving these out and showing people how to use them and just that. And so,
It's all it was all grassroots marketing back then.
yeah, exactly. So, I did that, and, then I started fishing seminars with him up at, Rock Creek Lake and all that stuff, and the Sierras and the South Lake. And then he was doing the sand bass stuff. And, he made jigs for sand bass. And back when we had the big sand bass spawns, so he was, back then I was doing all private boats. I had two of the kids in the neighborhood. Their dads had boats, and from pretty much age 12 until 20 something, I was going out with either one of those dads, like almost every weekend of the summer. So that's got a lot of my saltwater experience fishing with them. And we would go out and hit the sand bass and use those crappie John jigs on the sand bass and catch, hundreds of them and stuff like that. And then, John Bill died when I was probably my early 20s, and that's that kind of went away. And then there was a little void of jigs, tube jigs for a while. And then they all started coming back. And as they started coming back, and it was mainly just trout fishing from there on. And so I pro staffed for a lot of different, garage companies and some bigger companies, that came and gone through 30 plus years of doing that, trout fishing and stuff, but still worked on boats out of Newport. I worked on the Angler's Dream for a couple of years, and I was a backup deckhand on the Bongos for a couple of years, mostly 6-pack charters I was doing. And then, then I while I was doing that, I was doing mobile marine in Newport, where I had the empty 13-foot whaler boat where I had about a dozen boats a month where I had to clean and change the zincs and all that stuff. And
Sweet.
I basically did that job just to have a boat to fish out of. So that time frame, I was fished every square inch in Newport Harbor, in between going from boat to clean, and been doing 6-pack charters Friday till Sunday, for 2 years. I was fishing almost 300 days a year pretty much. And so
there's some great spots in Newport, aren't there?
Oh yeah. Now years later, I'm doing lots of spotted bay bass tournaments in Newport, and it's like, it's a lot of times I get back in the little corners and I'm like, I remember diving right here, So
some of my biggest fish would come back from like Dover Shores, way back in the back bay in the corner, and some of those fingers.
Yep.
And 2 feet of water.
Oh yeah.
These big bass are just tucked up against the seawall.
Yeah, that's one you don't get a lot, but that's where you come across the real big ones every once in a while. So.
Yep. Small.
Not good tournament spots, but if you're searching for a monster, that's where you go.
Right, exactly. The rest of the time you want to be in the eelgrass, I think.
Yeah. So that's where the idea of hookah baits came from, just being fishing tube jigs for 40 years pretty much. And especially with trout fishing, you're sight fishing and you're watching fish react. That's like one of my most favorite things to do, sight fish and see the fish react to the lures and what made them bite, what made them turn off, what turned them on, what turned them off, kind of thing. And everything that I didn't like, how the mini jigs, I'm talking mini jigs with the tails, right? That's how they always been made. And once you get one of those tails flips over the hook, that bait never doesn't run straight anymore. And that always drove me nuts. I was always like very fanatic about my baits running perfect.
Well, if they're not getting bit.
Yeah, if they're not getting bit. And of course, when you see that big 5-pounder swimming by and you cast at them, that's the one time your bait's fouled up and you don't get bit. It drove me nuts.
It just gives you a look and says, forget it, dude.
Yeah. And so the main way that hookah baits came about is just trying to make a tube jig that doesn't foul up ever. And then just all the other stuff, then I started calico bass fishing a lot in the ocean and yellowtail fishing. I had a little skiff when I was in my mid-20s. And what I was using was a sluggo on a lead head with an eyeball. That's where I learned, eyeballs make a huge difference sometimes they don't, And I've always, just studying baits, where I'm working on a boat, watching a bait swim around the bait tank, or plus I have pet bass and stuff. big aquarium at my house and studied them a lot. You know, when you're watching a bait swim, their tails just do a little, you know, they just do little vibrations. You never see a bait fish's tail doing this, right? And so big swim baits never made sense to me. You know, they had way too much movement that didn't look realistic to me. You watch bait fish, they don't move like that, you know. And so I wanted to get away from swim bait, a big tail, and just do less action. So that's where I was doing Sluggo on a lead head, and it's working way better for me than swim bait was.
Sluggos are great baits.
Yeah, yeah. And then so that was a combination of fishing two baits for many, many years, and then fishing the Sluggo on a lead head, and wanting a bait that never fouls up and just swims with less action and all that stuff. And that's kind of where the creation of hookup baits came from. And I had the idea in my head for at least 6 years before I ever even made one.
Really?
Yeah, I had the idea in my head of what it needed to be. And I'm just waiting for someone, you know, I'm always watching the market, waiting for something like it to come out. And it's just, nobody was making it. And then I finally meeting JoJo, my fiance, you know, she's a businesswoman that comes from a fishing family. And
cool.
And I was going, actually, I had plans to, I had a business before that I did pretty well with. And that business kind of was on the downturn, and I was selling it. And, you know, then I got divorced, my kids were grown. So I was like, I'm just going to fish for a living for now. And, you know, this is in my mid to late 30s. And so I was planning to go, I had it all lined up to go to Alaska and become a guide. And, you know, I just wanted to go work at a lodge, take people fishing and keep them alive. That was all the responsibility I wanted in life.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. And so I had plans to do that. And then I was dating JoJo, and told her of my plans, and she didn't want me to go, and wanted me to do that in San Diego. And I'm like, San Diego doesn't work like that. You're a deckhand on our boat, or you have your own boat and you got to advertise yourself and all that kind of stuff. I just want to work for a lodge. They do all that. I just take people fishing.
Yep.
You don't have that in San Diego. And then all of a sudden, just a light bulb went off in my head. She's a smart businesswoman. And I have this idea. So I looked her straight in the eye and said, I can make the most versatile, most effective lure that's ever been made. And she's like, you ever made one? I'm like, no, but it's right here. If I get this and make it a thing, it's going to catch every fish that swims. And so we came up with an agreement. She goes, okay. She goes, we'll go 50-50. I'll take care. She's going to take care of the business side of it. And I'll do the design and the making and marketing of it. And, you know, let's do this. I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. Alaska can wait. Let's see what that happens here.
Nice call.
Yeah, and 10 years later, here we are with 20 employees, and we still can't make enough. Not even close.
Cool. What a great story.
Yeah, pretty good. Started in a basement, then went to a 2.5-car garage, then went to an industrial shop, and then 2.5 years ago, we moved into an even bigger industrial shop. So,
congratulations, Chad.
Yeah.
Way to go, JoJo.
Yeah, JoJo made it happen.
Yep. I think behind every one of us, there's a powerful woman.
Exactly. They are amazing.
They pretty much run the show.
Oh yeah, she does. She's the boss. She's the boss. You know, she keeps me in line because I'm kind of a wild child.
Mine too.
I'm not. Thank God.
Dave's about as conservative as they come.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Chad, I want to go back a little bit because you went through this thing pretty fast, the evolution of you, and what I've noticed with you is you've kept your finger on the pulse of the young people, and it's so important. Like Michael and I, we talk about this every time we're on the show about kids and how we both remember what it was like fishing on the back of the sport boat when it would come in the afternoon at the docks in Newport or the docks in Dana Point, and then fishing those spotted bay bass all over the harbor. And it brings us right back to being little kids. And you're constantly taking care of the groms. We call them groms, the little kids, handing them handfuls of hookup baits and sending them out there. And because you remember how important that was when John grabbed you and took you by the hand, and that's why you're doing what you do today. So.
Exactly. It's full circle. For sure, without a doubt.
And you never know what kid's going to step up.
Exactly. You know, just today, you know, I went up and delivered baits to Lake Jennings here. Their trout season opened, so we refilled them, and there's 2 grums in there. You know, their mom's dropping them off. You know, trying to rent them a boat. I'm sitting there stocking the shelves, just listening to this, and kids are just stoked. Oh yeah, okay, we want to go and this, that, and ready to go. And you know, so I called them over. I'm like, you kids use hookup baits? He goes, oh my, I use them on my dad's boat. And you know, he immediately showed me a white sea bass and a calico he caught on a hookup bait.
Cool.
And I was like, well, here, you know, I just gave them both 3 packs each.
Oh
here,
my God.
go use this on the lake. And they're just, oh my God, thank you. And the stoke level was just so awesome. And it just feels so good to do that. You know, these kids that are out there.
Well, you remember how special it was when you were a kid to get a new jig or a bait.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yep. And so, yeah, and then we have the GROM program, which we've been running for years. And, you know, that's how I first met Cameron, Dave's.
Michael knows Cameron.
Yeah.
Cameron's
he was one of our first and best GROMs ever, you know. He was out there pounding the docks and using hookup baits. And you know,
he can do anything he wants.
Oh yeah, he's an amazing kid. You know, but through the years, I mean, there's been so many of them that, you know, started off as kids, now they're grown adults, and they're turned into amazing people. And, you know.
Can you believe it? You guys were sitting here, Cameron. I talked to him yesterday. He's 25 years old.
That's crazy.
I met him when he was 13.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
They grow up so fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the key to this whole thing, and what I talk about all the time, and Chad, you don't know which one of those children you gave those jigs to. You could have saved that child's life. You don't know what I want to, and I try to emphasize this with everybody. You don't know what people are going through. You have no idea what their home life's at. You have no idea. You don't know mine. You don't know Michael's. You just don't know. And when you hand someone a bait, you just changed their life. You might have saved them. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's so important to throw that line out on the dock and catch a fish on a hookup bait or catch a fish on any lure at all is so life-changing. It's just a life-changing event. And I'm glad that you are constantly giving back to the kids. Like we have this young man, I don't want to call him a kid. He's a young man, Cooper Borg. He went out on Justin's boat, chartered Justin's boat. He won a free trip on my dad's boat. He got to go out and go fishing on that. He's asking you for a couple of hookup baits. This is a really up and coming kid. I would love to get him in somehow, get him in with the whole thing. He's on the show right now. So we'll take care of you, Cooper. We'll get you in, hooked up with Chad. And because what the problem with the hookup baits, gang, is they last and they work. So they're going to be a little bit pricier than the other baits. But you know what? Who wants to buy a bait that doesn't work?
Well, what makes them pricier, they're 100% made in San Diego, the most expensive city in the whole country to make something. They're not made in China. And they're all quality product too. So it's like,
the quality control still sets in your hand. You guys are still hand cutting these things, or you're still doing it the old fashioned way. And that's why when you throw that hookup bait in the water, hold on, you're going to get bit.
Yeah, every one of them is going to swim absolutely perfect, and they're going to look perfect and everything else. I mean, no, we don't put junk out ever. I mean,
talk to me a little bit about the vibration. You said earlier about the big paddle tails, and they were big sweeping motion, and they just weren't as effective as a real live small shad or something. Tell me a little bit about the vibration and how your baits simulate.
The real magic of what makes a hookup bait so effective is because the action, and it really is one of the only baits in the world that does its action to get bit the moment it hits the water until you take it back out of the water. Right? If you throw a swim bait, you rarely ever get hit on a swim bait as it's sinking. Because when that swim bait is sinking, it is actually L-shaped, right? It's sinking down like this, and the tail is going up. So it's L-shaped. Or any other tube jig, like it gets it. Same thing with the tails like this. All those tails are going to go up. And the body's going to keep its shape, right? And so as it's falling, they lose profile, and fish are really about profile. If the profile is not correct, they usually won't bite it. The hook of bait keeps profile when it's falling. So it's keeping profile. As soon as it hits the water, it keeps profile and it's falling. But because it keeps the shape, it acts like a hull of a boat. It planes it out. But now it's getting all kinds of really good glide. As they're coming down, they're going to glide back and forth, coming down instead of just sinking. So they get bit on the drop more than any bait I've ever thrown ever. And hear it from everybody. Our tagline is "Don't blink on the sink," because they get hit on the fall very well. But when you stop the lure, right? So you get it down by the rocks or whatever, and you just stop it. The baits are actually balanced also, so it's going to sit in the water just like a fish sits. It's not going to sit like this, or like an iron would sit like this, or a swim bait would sit like this. The baits are actually balanced, so it sits exactly correct in the water. And then it has a realistic eye, has a lateral line, has the right coloring, has the right profile. So just sitting still, it looks like the real thing sitting still. And so they get hit very well, just dead sticking it, right in the fish's face. But then when you retrieve it, if you just quick wind it, it's going to have a little wiggle to it. And then if you do a little rod action, every time you twitch it, that's going to twitch. It's going to dart left and right. All the actions that a fish does when he's escaping a predator, they swim erratic. It does all that retrieving. So all the way back to the boat, it's doing that. So it's one of the only lures in the world that gets hit no matter what it's doing. If it's in the water, it's doing its action to get bit. Where most lures either get hit on the drop, not sitting or retrieving, or most lures get hit retrieving and then nothing else. So that's really the magic of a hook. It's always doing its action. And because it does all those three actions, it makes it so it can be used in any body of water for any fish. It can be used, it's very effective in rivers, still water, moving water, deep water. You can use it right on top, mid-level, ice fishing. They're really popular for ice fishing. So it's just, it doesn't matter the situation. The baits will catch fish in that situation. And every fish in the world eats another fish, and that's what it imitates very, very well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Jeff, I worked with Patrick Sebille a while back, and he was a design engineer for NASA or somewhere, rocket science guy, brilliant. But he was talking about the skin on his hard baits, how he put a little bit of a ripple in some of his, to create that vibration without the vibration, if you will. Mm-hmm. Have you done some of that on your finish?
No, it's it's just a smooth body, and where I've had guys say that's that full smooth body without no hard, without a lead head that's exposed or anything like that. I've had people say that they've noticed fish hang on to it longer because it has a natural feel. The whole bait has a natural feel, Okay. So, but as in vibration wise, I've never felt the need of having of anything with vibration. I mean, the fish feel it there just because it's a presence. But right. And that's the thing is it's not a reaction bait. That's a lot of my seminars I do and stuff. It's you're gonna fish it like if you're fly lining a sardine for tuna. I mean, you're gonna try to get as light as line possible, let it be as free as possible. The more free you let the bait fall, the more it swims and all that stuff. So it's really the technique is fly lining a sardine. I mean, and you want the bait to be, because they're eating it because they think it's the real thing. They're not eating it because it's a reaction bait. It's not giving off vibration. It's not giving off a bunch of crazy action. It's a real subtle, natural action with a profile of something that looks real. So they're eating it like it's real. So you want to fish it with as light as line possible and all that kind of stuff.
What's your go-to bait for Newport spotties?
Right now is be a 1/4 ounce. Then the watermelon jack, that's our newest color, is what I would use. Or brown silver and green pumpkin works really well there too. So, but the 1/4 ounce is all I use. That's pretty much that's our highest selling bait is the 1/4 ounce.
Is it really?
Yeah, and it's because of the bass. I mean, it's the most popular bay bait there is on the market, and plus all the kids that fish hit the docks and everything else. It's a 1/4 ounce fishes every bay from San Francisco to Mexico perfectly. So that's the one, that's that quarter ounce.
I can't wait to try it.
Yeah. We'll get you some.
Can't wait to try that. It sounds so fun.
Yeah. So, I do a lot of spotted bay bass tournaments. I've probably won more spotted bay bass tournaments than anyone in California. But I do the biggest series, which is called Spotty Bowl. And it's pretty cool, the series. There's about 200 anglers that fish the series every year.
Nice.
And they put out a poll of, the most used baits of everyone, and everyone votes for what their most used baits are. And we use 3 years in a row, we won the most used baits.
What? In the tournament bowl?
Yeah.
Jeez. So that's basically taken that's pretty much replaced gulp for all intent and purposes.
Yeah, pretty much. And the baits do come scented, and that's another thing is, when I design these baits, just all the little tidbits that I've learned through, a lifetime of fishing of, scent and the realistic eye, the lateral line, profile, and all these little things, and I've always thought it's the guy that does all the little things is the guy that usually excels. A lot of people just do things. They do it like everyone else. But the guy that pays attention to all the details and executes all those little details ends up winning. That's how it is. That's how it works. So when I designed this bait, I just put that mindset into it. Everything that I've noticed that got me bit through 40 years of fishing, I try to put into this bait. So it has scent, it has eyeball, it has lateral line, it has the right profile, and I play with all the different size hooks and get the right size hook. It's just like you hook an anchovy with a huge hook, you don't get bit, right? So it's the same thing. All those details that went into this bait. Also, there's a lot of people look at it and like, oh, that's simple, it's a little tube bait. Well, they don't see all those details that are in that bait that make them do the magic they do.
Ultra thin wire hooks for the bait.
Yeah. Well, not super thin, but they're not heavy and they're not light. They're the mid range. They're all owner and must-add hooks, and they're their quality hook for the jigs and stuff.
A point taken there with what you were saying about the details. We were fishing tuna, and it was a pretty scratchy bite, and we found out that fishing with the O-rings on a hook on a live bait, the O-rings were hitting against the hook and deterring the fish. Just that
little tick tick tick.
Yep. It was enough to put the fish off a bite.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been a slow pick, we would have never figured it out. But all of a sudden, the guys with the O-rings were not getting bit.
Yeah. And it's all. I've noticed that with tuna, and I've noticed that with stock trout. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's just stock trout." You know how much I've learned by fishing a bank full of 30 people, shoulder to shoulder, fishing for these stock trout, and there's one guy that's just catching them every cast, and there's other guys that don't get bit. Then through the years, I've always just had my mind work. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing, and that guy's not doing? And it could just be the subtlest of things. It's so crazy, and that's what keeps us fishing, is just that little tiny subtle thing will make you a superstar or make you not get bit. So it's crazy.
My wife brings home sapwood for our fireplace. We heat with our fireplace here in the canyon, and with the sapwood, I'm a hero when I go to light a fire. I can't miss, but without the sapwood, it's a nightmare trying to get so it's just a little piece of sapwood makes all the difference in the world. Fireplace.
It's the small details make all the difference in the world.
Oh, I said your sapwood makes me look like a hero, honey.
Well, speaking of the little things, look at this video I made real quick with Promar, the hoop nets, and then we'll get back into this. Because, Chad, I want to talk to you about this tournament fishing stuff. Hold on a second.
All right.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the ambush line of hoop nets. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top, or start at the top and work our way to the bottom, depending on where you're at your level of hoop netting. First of all, we're going to talk about the new Ambush XL Heavy. Now this thing is an animal. This thing, most of us for years have had to put weights in the bottom of our nets to get them down to the bottom when we're fishing over 100 feet of water. Well, the guys at Promar have come up with the most phenomenal design. This thing right here, this thing by itself weighs 14 pounds. This is a big piece of metal right here. This thing's gonna sink like a boulder right to the bottom. You're not going to have to put any weights on them. You're not going to have to worry about that anymore. This thing's ready to go. If you guys are fishing in the deep water, the new XL Heavy is going to be your go-to ambush net. Next, the Ambush XL. This is a phenomenal net, giant opening at the top, much bigger than the original Ambush. This is going to be for those of you with enough deck space that can handle these XL. Because like I've always said, I've never had enough of anything, and I've never had enough of an ambush net. The bigger the better, always. Bigger is better. The more lobsters you can fit in here, the better it's going to be for you. Get the night over with quicker. So the Ambush XL is much bigger around than the original ambush net. The problem with this, if you have a small boat though, is it's going to take up a big piece of property on your boat. So we're going to go to the original ambush and show you a little bit smaller in diameter, much easier to store. These all stack right up on top of each other for easy storage. When you have 10 of these, because you're not going to want a hoop net without 10, because you're never going to go by yourself. You're always going to take a friend. That way he can have 5 and you can have 5. And these things will stack up and take up one tiny little area on your boat. If you look, those of you with the small 20-foot to 30-foot boats, you're going to want these smaller type ambush nets, the original ambush, because they take up less space on the deck of your boat, much easier to store. You can see the difference in size of the two nets. And then we got the heavy duty, this XL Heavy for fishing deep water on the bottom. I just went through the whole line of ambush nets. If you want to get more technical and get more precise on how to hoop net in Southern California, check out my website at yoursaltwaterguide.com, and you can check out the full line of ambush nets there. And you can
if you check out this QR code right now, they got the Black Friday sale, so everything in the store is 20% off, gang. It says 15, but you know what? I'm lying. It's 20% off everything in the store. If you go over to the Promar website right now, if your guys are driving in your car, it's type in YSWG when you're checking out, and you'll save 20% on your purchase. So go to PromarAhi.com and check out all the great products that Promar has to offer. And what I want to talk to you about now, Chad, since we're in the second half of the show, and I want Michael to understand how absolutely dominating you have been for such a long time in these tournaments. Talk about that he's not trying to brag about himself. It's just an unbelievable stat that we're talking about here. How you've been able to stay at the top of these bass tournaments in Southern California is unbelievable.
Yeah. It's kind of funny is I'd never been a tournament fisherman at all. And when I first made hookup baits, everyone knew them as trout baits. And I was going out, and at the time when I made hookup baits, I didn't have a boat at that time. It was part of my life where I didn't have a boat. But I was fishing the bay. I had a kayak, and an old used kayak, and I was fishing the bays and just catching bass like crazy, big halibut, all that stuff. And then I started taking my kayak out off the Point Loma, and caught 30-pound yellowtail, catching calicos like crazy. It's like, I was like, man, these baits are catching. And I'm posting them, and nobody would believe that a tube bait works in the ocean. They just were just disbelief. It was like I was catching 20-pound halibut. Oh, yeah, right. You caught that on a sardine and put the bait in his mouth. Then I catch the yellowtail. Same thing. I was being accused of being a bait hanger, basically. Catching fish on bait and put my baits in their mouth and stuff like that. And people are just so programmed that a calico bass only eats live bait and a swim bait. And a yellowtail will only eat live bait and an iron. You're crazy that you're trying to tell people that you're catching them on these tube baits. And I was getting frustrated, and eventually I joined Freedom Boat Club, and instead of buying a boat, the Freedom Boat Club just started down here in San Diego, so we signed up, and I started taking the boat out. And I was just catching bass, like big sand bass, big calicos, and white sea bass, everything on these baits. And so I was like, and nobody was really like buying it, and nobody was like, yeah, right. And so I was like, I need to start doing tournaments, and I was kind of following the Saltwater Bass Series. And seeing, and started, I was trying to build up. I've never been a social media guy either, and I knew it would be part of the business where I had to start doing social media. So I made my own, the Hookup Baits page and stuff, and started trying to build that and stuff. So I started following a lot of people, and a lot of the guys that fish the saltwater bass series. I was following them. I'm seeing what they catch compared to what I was catching on my normal day. And I'm like, I think I can compete in this. I think I'll do well. And so I had to talk to Freedom Boat Club and see if they'd sponsor me and make sure I have a boat for all the tournaments. And, then luckily the Huntington Beach one opened up. And so it was like, the saltwater bass series goes up and down the coast.
Right.
So we had to get Huntington Beach on board also to make sure I had a boat. And so they're like, yeah, this would be cool. You're doing these professional saltwater bass tournaments and Freedom Boat Club boats. Yeah, let's do it. And so the ferry, I called up my buddy that's been fishing with me forever. And hey, we're going to start doing saltwater bass tournaments. And he's like, okay, And so we get out there, and none of these saltwater bass guys knew who we were. I mean, we'd never been, promoting ourselves as saltwater bass guys. So nobody knew who we were. And we're using rented boats, Freedom Boat Club boats, and some dudes making baits in their garage. And by now, I already figured out, just by fishing them, that the baits actually work better on spinning rigs. They get a better fall on a spinning reel than they do on a casting reel. It's more free. So then we all loaded up with all spinning reels. This is before spinning reels were even half cool in California. And
they must have thought you were wackos.
Yeah, so we're rental boat, not known, making baits. The only thing you use baits they make in the garage using all spinning reels. And it was the most dominating tournament series win in saltwater bass history. Of the 7 tournaments, we got the 4 first and a second and a third place, and then won the championship. And the first year we ever fished. So of course we got all those guys are cheating. No way, these guys are cheating,
These wackos, they can't be doing that with spinning gear and a tube bait.
No way, we're getting a little bit of hate from them and stuff a little bit, because
of course
this can't be true. This can't be real. So the next year, Jerry told us, hey, make sure you guys run a track you got people accusing you of, get stuff and all this stuff. The theory was we were hiding bass in each harbor, and we're killing out catching bass and hiding them in live wells in the harbors. And when the tournament started, we go pick up our bass, and I guess that's the only way they figured we were cheating. So he said, make sure you run track. And I'm like, I run a track. I use Navionics, and I run a track anyway. So yeah, no problem. And so we ended up winning the series again the next year and the championship again the next year. Back to back. And then it was really easy when we were the only ones using hookup baits. Put it that way. And we were the only ones fishing deep structure. Everyone was fishing kelp line and jetties and visual structure, where the hookup baits work on deep structure like nothing else.
When you say deep structure, you're talking maybe like the mooring weights on some of the mooring balls and that type of stuff.
Well, this is the saltwater bass series. It's mostly outside stuff.
Mostly, okay.
We're doing pipelines and artificial reefs and natural reefs, but the 75 to 120 foot stuff. What we Iser's reef, all that kind of stuff. Is what we'll start tournaments on. And this is back when the islands were part of the tournament series too. So people were running Santa Clemente, and we're going to Iser's Reef and winning. It was pretty awesome, and that was pissing them off also.
And they're running 70 miles, and you're running 6.
Yeah, exactly. And so after 2 years in a row of doing that kind of performance of just smoking the whole series, people started paying attention, and they started using them, and then that kind of thing just came. I mean, I stopped fishing the saltwater bass series 2 years ago, and we have never came in less than 3rd place in the championship. So we have won 5 times, and we've gotten a couple seconds in the 3rd. So we've always been top 3 for the last for 8 years in a straight.
That's so cool, Chad.
Unbelievable.
Do you remember the first guy that came up to you at a tournament and said, hey, can you show me your baits and tell me a little bit about them? What that experience was like?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who it was, but we did notice that people started using it a lot. Tom and Val is one of them. Even though they're sponsored by Big Hammer, they're like, and they started making a lot of orders. And Garrett and Bobby, Garrett was buying hookup baits like crazy from us. And, you from the online orders, you would see all the tournament guys starting to load up on hookup baits and stuff, and that's where it started getting harder to keep winning and stuff.
Yeah, you're giving up your secrets.
Yeah. But then, then the tournament series started. The main thing is using a donkey rig, what we call it, or the double rig, where we're using two baits. And that won us a lot of tournaments using the two baits. You hook a 2-pounder, and that thing's going crazy. And because the baits run so straight, you're reeling up a 2-pounder, and that bait's just following it along just beautifully. That gets the attraction of the 5 and 6-pounders, and they come up, and the fish that 5-pounder that normally wouldn't have bit, he's all excited by that 2-pounder. And he eats that other bait. Yep. And that happened over and over again. And that's the reason I created the double rig, was by catching a 2 or 3-pounder and watching 5-pounders follow it. And so I was like, I need a way to put another bait there for that fish to eat. So that's where I created the double rig, what swivel to use and the lengths and all that stuff to catch that second fish. And I nailed it with that. And that was, even though when people started using the hookup baits, it was double rig. That started.
How far away from the upper bait is the lower one?
The standard is like a 2.5 foot and 3 foot, 2 foot and 3 foot. As long as your baits are separated by 5 inches, that's all you need. But the length, as long as it's 2 feet or longer, the length doesn't really matter. Just if you get too long, it's hard to cast and work with. If it's too short, it doesn't get as much action. So that 2 to 3 foot range, as long as it's separated 5 inches, it works phenomenally. And then the A rigs became, the only guys that were really competing with us is the guys using A rigs. And so I'm like, this is during COVID. During the COVID shutdown, I started playing with the A rig stuff, the Alabama rigs. And I developed my own Alabama rig, which is a larger size with heavier wire and this and that. And the only thing that was better than fishing 2 hookup baits was fishing 5. That's almost not fair. I mean, I even got a patent pending on the A rig I made and everything else, but I never put it out because I didn't like how damaging it was on the bass. It was too effective, and it just those 5 baits. You catch one bass and he has a hook in his mouth and a hook in his eye and a hook in his back. I mean, it just tore him up. It wasn't good for him. It was just too effective. I already put such a damage on the California bass world as it is, fishing the hookup baits. Now got everyone fishing 5 of them very, very effectively. I don't think that's fair to the fish. And so I never put it out, but we won a lot of tournaments on them, to the point of where Saltwater Bass Series in the last 3 years, the kind of reason I stopped fishing them is they banned double rigs and they banned A rigs. You have to fish single bait. It's just, it's because we're so effective. So, but then I went on to, I kind of did my thing in the saltwater bass world. So that's where I moved on and started doing the Spotty Bowl. Spotty Bowl's the biggest spotted bay series that it's ever been around in California. And so, and we support them and they support us. And so I started fishing that. And there's a north and a south. So it's all the bays from Newport north, and then it's the south bays of San Diego and Michigan. So it's 2 different series ran by one series. And I'm one of the only guys that ever got Angler of the Year in both series in the same year. And I've won the championship multiple times in that series also. So now this year I'm moving into the freshwater bass. So I've been really working on that. Where I kind of put my feet in it a little bit last year, fished a few tournaments last year, freshwater bass, and I'm going to really go for it this year. So I'm only fishing one spotted bay bass tournament or series, and then a freshwater bass series this year.
I want to circle back around for a second, Chad. And you mentioned, I think Dave mentioned earlier about how one bait basically changed his life when he was, got handed a bait on the dock. And the next thing you know, he's hooked up and it just changed his life. Same thing happened to Bill Dance. He had this lure that he had his eye on down at the hardware store. It was like 75 cents or something back in the day. And he looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And his mom finally bought it for him. And he went out and he caught a bass on a hard bait.
Yeah.
Changed his life forever. That one bait
Yep.
And he talks about it. He said, I looked at that bait for 6 weeks during the summer before I had enough, nickels and dimes to put it together. And my mom paid the other half. And my first fish, it just changed my life. So
Yeah.
handing out baits like that, Chad, you are planting potential seeds that could change a person's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we've been doing the GROM program for years. Back when we were doing it hardcore before COVID. COVID really hurt things a little bit for us on that.
Yeah.
But I was taking out a GROM every month. We're picking a GROM every month, and I would take them out on my boat and give them the best day of fishing in their lives. That became friendships with that kid and their family for lifelong. I'm at shows now, and I have
kids coming up.
Two grown adults walk up to me. Hey, you remember me? And I'm like, no. Yeah, we were on your boat during the GROM thing. And now he's a kid in college, and it's like, holy crap, yeah, I remember you. I hear the stories, and it's all makes it all worth it. That was still the best day of fishing I've ever had in my life. Stuff like that.
It makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the GROM program actually got recognized by the IGFA. So I got a big plaque and everything from the IGFA for the GROM program that we developed and stuff here. And so after COVID, we got so busy after COVID. Now, before COVID, we were doing the GROM trip once a month, and I was taking a veteran out once a month. So I was doing every month. I was doing the GROM trip and a veteran trip for year round for like 3 or 4 years straight. And then COVID killed that. But then after COVID, we got so busy with hookup baits. Just like after COVID, everybody in the world wanted to fish, and they walk into a tackle shop and say, "Yeah, I haven't fished, or I haven't fished since I was a kid. What should I use?" And every tackle shop says, "Here, a spinning rod and some hookup baits." and that we used all our inventory up during COVID, and we haven't been able to build inventory since, because that's the demand since COVID.
Oh, that's so cool. Hey, talk to me a little bit about you're talking about a spinning reel versus a conventional reel.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that the line falls more freely, or what are the subtleties between a conventional and a spinning reel?
So what it is, when you have we fish all braid, and so you pack a spinning reel almost overfull with braid, right? You open that bell, the line just falls off. And so now you have line laying on the water, and then it's going down to your bait, right?
Okay.
And so that bait is falling free as possible because it has line laying on the water. With a conventional reel, you have a tight line, no line laying on the water. You have a tight line all the way to your bait.
Yep.
It has to spin the spool for line to pay out, right? So that little bit of tension of having to spin that spool will make it almost like a slow retrieve of that bait. So you cast out, you have that tension. So instead of it falling straight down and doing this kind of stuff, now it's falling back towards you. And it's still doing some swim, but probably half as much, because it has that tension of pulling it to you, of having to spin the spool and that tight line on the water. So that's what I noticed where we're in the early stages, where I'm fishing with a buddy. He's fishing a casting reel, and I'm fishing a spinning reel. We're right next to each other using the same bait. I'm getting bit, 5 times more than him on the drop. And I was like, the only difference is a casting reel and a spinning reel, And then with a casting reel, you're filling the bites, right? With a spinning reel, it's all line watching. And because you got that line laying on the water, and you use white braid, that line on the water tells you everything. So it's all visual with a spinning reel, or it's by feel with a casting reel. And you learn to read the line really well. You can detect everything that's going on. So it's a matter of you get a better fall. Line watching, you see everything that's reading back to you of what's going on with that bait. And then when you retrieve, a lot of times with the bigger casting reels, it's hard to do rod movement by cranking, right? You see most people with this casting reel, they'll go whine, 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 and go jig, 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 whine, 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 jig, jig. With a spinning reel, it's very easy to do this at the same time. So when you're cranking back, you can jig and crank at the same time and get that bait. So you get easier rod movement while cranking also. So
what's your go-to line test there on the bay? 8 pound or 6?
On the bay, I'm probably 10-pound braid to 8 or 10-pound leader.
Okay.
Yeah, always an 8-foot piece of leader.
Okay.
on that. And I fish the same thing, braid to leader, braid to 8-foot leader from trout all the way up to yellowtail and tuna. Everything is set up exactly the same way, just bigger as you go to the bigger fish. And it works.
So where can we get these baits?
Pretty much any tackle shop in California will have them. We're in almost 400 shops now.
Sweet.
Yeah, we're in all the Bass Pros on the West Coast. We are the highest selling bait at all the Bass Pros on the West Coast. But hookup baits, they're always at hookupbaits.com, our online store. You can always find them there. Yeah.
And then Chad, talk about this. We got to vote for you. We got to help Chad out, gang. Every single person watching the show today, help Chad out.
Yeah. Oh my God, it would be so appreciated. So, and that's another important reason why I stopped doing the saltwater bass series is I really got into kayak fishing. I always used to be mainly a boat fisherman with some kayak. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I switched to where I'm mostly kayak fishing to doing some boat fishing. And it's just the kayak world is such a growing market. It started bringing more customers and more opportunities by doing kayak tournaments and everything that goes with kayak fishing. Now I've been being sent all over the country. I'm on the USA kayak team, saltwater kayak team, where I just did a Pan Am Games tournament in La Paz, Mexico last spring. And then I actually made it onto the World USA team where I was supposed to do a tournament in Italy. But that worked out at the same time as where I got opportunity to guide, check this out, guide Kevin Van Dam, Mark Zona, Davey Height, and Mike McInnes trout fishing in British Columbia. So I was flown up to British Columbia to figure out the bite and guide those 4 Bassmaster Hall of Famers trout fishing off of kayaks. So it's like, okay, guide 4 Hall of Famers or go fish Italy. I had to pick one, so I picked go fish with the Hall of Famers. So I did that last summer with doing that.
Good choice.
And then I fished the Nationals in Florida kayak, and then made the USA team next year. So then I got the USA tournament in Panama next year. So all that's crazy stuff's coming from kayak fishing, right? And so now I made it to a nationwide tournament of a kayak build-off tournament. And that's another thing. People building their kayaks, like everything a boat has on it, but on a kayak now, right? And so I got on this tournament that from Kayak Angler Magazine to be one of the people. They got pro kayakers from all over the nation, where it's a head-to-head bracket style build out of who built the coolest kayak. And so I'm on the quarterfinals now, and this week I'm going up against last year's champion of the tournament. So I need everybody's vote to make it to the semifinals to get past this guy.
Right.
So what you do, you go to Kayak Angler Magazine /Yakoffs. It's a funny name, Yakoff. So I need everyone to yak off for me this week. so you go Kayak Angler Magazine /Yakoffs.
You're asking for a lot.
Yeah. So, and that's where you see the yak offs and everything, or you just go to Hookup Bait's social media. We're posting like crazy about it. So go to Hookup Bait's social media pages, Instagram or Facebook, and you'll see it. Follow the links. And yeah, you can vote every day, once a day. And vote for me all this week. Started today all until Sunday night. You can vote once a day. And every time you vote, you actually get put into the drawing to win a bunch of prizes they give away too. So you can actually win something of your own. But it doesn't matter if you're a kayak fisherman or not. Just help Hookup Baits go to the next round of this nationwide competition. Would be pretty cool. And check out the kayak builds. I mean, the kayaks nowadays are just amazing. They're incredible. They're so comfortable and stable. My kayak has 2 motors on it. It has a front motor and a bow and a stern motor on it, and forward-facing sonar. I mean, it's just like, it's insane. They're really fun to fish out of. I love fishing out of my kayak.
So how do you like your forward-facing sonar in the water there?
It's for some fish, it's very helpful, and in some fish, spotted bay bass, it doesn't help at all. They're always on the bottom. They're stuck to the bottom. I've never seen a suspended spotted bay bass yet. So it doesn't help with them, but with freshwater bass, absolutely a help. For trout, that's help. Any kind of suspended, moving around kind of fish, that does help with it, for sure. But in anything less than 10 feet of water, that doesn't help. And so a lot of my freshwater bass fishing has been out in the middle of the lake, and seen them and casting. The hookup bait is an amazing forward-facing lure too. It shows up really well, and the whole glide and all that. You can glide it down right in front of that fish's face and stop it, and then it sits real well and keep it right in his face until he eats it, basically. So it works really well on that kind of stuff. So for trout and bass, it's not too. I used it in the saltwater, also in artificial reefs. Use your navionics. And with a lot of these artificial reefs, if they're under 70 feet, the bass see your boat, they don't bite. So you'll get one pass, you'll catch a bass or three. Once you drift over to that artificial reef, no more bites. So you want to stay off of it. And that forward facing, I can shoot out 200 feet and see that artificial reef. So I'll hit spot lock, a good, just like a good castaways off of it, and be able to use that forward facing and say, oh, there's an artificial reef right there, 60 feet out, and then be able to cast to it. So it's really useful on that kind of stuff. But other than that, it's mostly a freshwater tool. But then it's also, you learn a lot from it. It's like sight fishing, just through a screen, though. You see the fish react to it, how far away they see your baits. That's one thing with using it in San Diego Bay. You get bit halfway down sometimes. You're like, oh, wow, these fish were suspended. I haven't seen the suspended bass in San Diego Bay, sand bass or spotted bay bass. But what they're doing, they're seeing that bait 20 feet up.
And coming up.
You see them shoot off the bottom and come up and grab that bait. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. They're not suspended fish. They see that bait coming. They go and get it. So yeah, they rarely suspend. So, you learn. It's a good learning tool.
Clarify something for me, Chad. On the spinning baits, when you're using the spinning outfits, you're saying you're making the cast, the bait hits the water, but the line continues off the reel and basically is on top of the water as the bait's sinking. So there's not a direct line between like a conventional reel and a spinning reel, because there's so much line that's followed the bait out that when it hit the water, there's still line peeling off the line on top of where it went into the water. So that's where you get your free fall. Yeah.
You usually have like 2 to 3 feet of line laying on the water. It comes off the tip of your rod. You got about 2 feet of line laying on that water, and then it goes down to the bait. Okay. That 2 feet of line on the water right there, it tells you everything. As the bait's sinking, you got your steady rhythm of it coming off your reel. You kind of does this, and all of a sudden you see that rhythm just kind of go pop, 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 pop. Like that's a bite, or the rhythm just stops. That's a bite, or just sometimes it just goes flying off your reel, and obviously that's a bite. Sometimes you see the rhythm and you see a little tick, that little tick. And so once you learn to read all that stuff, I mean, it's just every time I had like veterans and kids and other people on my boat, they were right next to me. I was like, "Oh, you just got bit," and they're like, "What?
What?
Yeah, you put it in gear and reel. How did you know that? It's just that little tick that tells you everything.
That's all you get for the bay bass.
Yeah. So once you learn to read that, it's very effective.
And I like the fact you're saying they hold on to the bait longer.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing you do with, when you're tight line with the conventional, you're filling everything. So you feel that tick, and a lot of times you're too quick on it when you do that. When it's visual, you still have your bell open, so you see the tick. You got to flip your bell, get tight on it, then strike. So you got a little bit more delay, and you actually end up hooking more fish because you have that little bit of delay. It's so hard. It's so hard to train yourself to have a delay when you feel a bite.
Oh, absolutely. That's instant,
right?
Your reaction's instant. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't knock it off.
Exactly. So it helps with hookup ratio and all that kind of stuff. But mainly it helps with action. And the thing nowadays, the spinning reels are so bulletproof and powerful.
Beautiful.
And I'm not good at maintaining my stuff, and you don't have to maintenance a spinning reel. They just work. They just go and they work, and you don't have to do anything to them.
Yep.
What's this? Are you the only bait manufacturer in these tournaments? I'm sure there's sponsored guys, but yeah, that's a good question. Actually, it takes big balls to be a bait manufacturer in enter tournaments. And that's why I am the only manufacturer that is in tournaments. You don't see any manufacturers actually fish tournaments because it can, that's why fishing these saltwater. And you remember at the beginning of the story, I told you we're mainly known as a freshwater trout mainly.
Right.
After about 5 or 6 years of doing these saltwater tournaments, I started getting a lot actually. Started getting, oh, you guys make trout baits? that saltwater market took off so much, everyone forgot we even made trout baits. And that was because of fishing tournaments and winning tournaments, right? Yeah. So it can work really well for marketing like crazy if you win. If you don't win, it goes the other way. It's not going to be good for marketing. No. So a lot of bait manufacturers usually don't fish tournaments themselves. They'll sponsor people that use their baits and a bunch of other baits. Where if you're on Team Hookup Bait, we have a team of maybe 8 guys. And part of our team the agreement is that they all sign a little contract of this you only use hookup baits. And so that's a part of like, hey, if you want to be part of the team, you're only using a hookup bait. And that's every team member that has a hookup baits jersey on, they only use hookup baits. And I have not tied another lure on in 10 years. And no matter where I fished in the world, freshwater, saltwater, from Alaska to Mexico, from California to Florida, and it's the same result no matter what you're fishing for. You've got to change size and color and technique a little bit, but still hookup bait absolutely performs no matter where. So that's something as long as I'm part of hookup baits, I don't plan on tying on another lure ever. So I want to see how long I can keep on fishing just a hookup bait. It's pretty unique.
Yeah, you don't need to go to another bait.
No, and that's it's so versatile. You don't need to.
I had my very first show when I started the Inside Sport Fishing series back then. It was called Fish On, and I wrote Toyo Shimano a letter about getting involved. And he writes back and he says involvement usually has green attached to it. What did you have in mind? I saved that letter. It's amazing. So we go on our first half-day trip out of Long Beach. We're fishing barracuda, and I have no Shimano gear at all. I'm there to film, and I brought all my pins and stuff with me, and so I'm throwing this 4-aught with a surface iron, and Toyo looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm fishing." He goes, "Not with that shit, you're not." It's the same deal. It's like, no, we're sponsoring you now. You fish with our gear. I said, you got to get me some to fish with. He goes, "Trust me, we'll take care of you."
Yeah. I've had that same thing.
Yeah, what are you doing fishing with that reel?
I've done a number of TV shows over the last 10 years too, fishing shows with different people and stuff. And it's that same thing all the time. It's like, oh, we're sponsored by Okuma. You need to have Okuma stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So you see it all the time. And it's not a problem. I totally understand it.
Yeah, you figure out what side of the bread the butter's on.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, gang, tonight we're going to go live with Captain Al Clowers. Lisa and the gang Lisa's taking her 2 kids out, and they're going to be hoop netting with Captain Al Clowers. And then Tina Stanley's going to be on the boat. Bob Geis is going to be on the boat. It's going to be an absolute phenomenal trip. Brett Rodriguez is going to be on the boat. Gang, you don't want to miss tonight. Tonight's live show. We're averaging about 60,000 people on the live shows at night. I'd love for you guys to be a part of this tonight. It's going to be absolutely insane. Fishing in San Diego Harbor right after this big rain we just had. Should be an absolutely phenomenal evening. We might even catch some lobsters. I'm really looking forward to it. And then Dana Wharf Sport Fishing, I have a little bit to do with that place. They're going to be running their very first open party lobster trip on Friday night, this Friday night. And it's $150 per person. They have 4 people already. So all you need is 2 people, and the boat's going to be going, and you can have a couple of nets to fish. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It's on the Reel Fund. And the really cool thing about Dana Point is they're out there fishing in 5 minutes from the dock. They're out there in the ocean fishing. It's a pretty spectacular thing. You can give Dana Wharf Sport Fishing a call at 949-496-5794 and get on that trip. And let them know Dave Hansen, Your Saltwater Guide, sent you. I kind of know the owner a little bit, so check it out. See what's going on there. And Captain Al will be live with us tonight. And Chad, I want to thank you. I know this was a lot to get you to come on right before Thanksgiving, so thank you. What a phenomenal show, Michael, right?
You're amazing, Chad. Congratulations on all your tournament wins. Congratulations on JoJo and you guys hooking up and doing what you've done. It's just, it's obviously, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true, but oh my God, there's so much work with it too. It's crazy.
It's overwhelming. Isn't it?
I've never worked so hard in my life, but it's but it's awesome still.
And there's no guaranteed paycheck either.
The bravest men in the world are entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Right, Dave?
Absolutely. Who'd have ever thought I'd be doing this? Oh my God. I never thought. Never ever thought.
Yeah.
Michael Folks thought 20 years ago, he's like, dude, you don't know how to talk.
Well, every other word was an F-bomb. It's great when it's just us on the boat, Dave, but we're on camera.
Yeah. Even old dogs can learn new things.
Kelly and I laugh about it all the time. We got called one time, 25 years ago, Michael called me up and said, Dave, you got to put on your big boy pants. I'm like, shit, I don't even own a pair of big boy pants. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about.
Board shorts, and that's it, dude. Take it or leave it.
And here we are. Who'd have ever thought?
Yeah. I mean, you never know what life's going to bring you. It's crazy.
Nope. We just got to stay alive long enough. And I'll tell you what, fishing has saved my life. And Michael Folks, how is it going with the history of sport fishing?
It's good, David. I appreciate you asking. We have finally put the package together on December 2nd. We go to 80 countries worldwide.
Oh my God, how exciting.
It is.
Woo!
In 80 countries on about a dozen different platforms. We're in 3 languages already, French, Spanish, and English, all closed captioning. And so, we're excited about the launch. We've teamed up with the biggest Canadian free, what they call it, fast TV up in Canada. So we're going to go to Canada on January 2nd. So it's 80 countries on December 2nd. Fingers are crossed. It's going to be about a month or 2 before we start seeing any real results. But fingers crossed that by the end of by this time next year, hopefully I can buy some of your baits, Chad.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that. I'll be looking for that. That's awesome.
Thanks. It's a pretty cool show. I'm really proud of it.
The history of sport fishing is such a phenomenal series, gang, and it touches on really
everything. Like
it says, the history of sport fishing, which you don't even know. The history goes so deep, and it's so connected to us as U.S. citizens. The thing about this that I learned, and we talk about it every time we finish the show up, is the oldest fishing club, Chad. Listen to this. This is going to blow your mind. The oldest fishing club. Go ahead, Michael.
It's the oldest fishing club in the world. It's the oldest continuously operated social club in the English-speaking language. It was started in 1732 on the shores of the Schuylkill River, which is now where Philadelphia sits. And they started this little fishing club. All these fly fishing guys got together because they wanted to talk about declaring independence from Great Britain. And had they been caught talking about, declaring their independence from Great Britain, they would have been hung for treason. So some of these guys you've probably heard of, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, George Washington, those guys ring a bell, Paul Revere. These guys were all fly fishing, and they were all getting together under the guise of a fly fishing club called the Schuylkill Fishing Club. And that's where they wrote the Declaration of Independence, followed by the Constitution. So our forefathers met the guys of a fishing club to write the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of this country. And it's such an amazing story when you dig in that deep to how fishing went from an act of survival to a sport in the last 250 years in this country. It's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
And the
Well, it's
United States of America was founded on this, and now we got these leaders that are trying to close fishing. What the hell?
Wacko down.
it's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you were saying, they were fishing has saved you, saved your life kind of thing. It's the same story. I mean, like that neighborhood I grew up in, like I said before, is all fishing boys, rowdy. We're rowdy as hell, and fish, but we love to fish. But later, and when up by the time I was like 16, 17, 18, half of them started smoking pot, and then half of them from there went to doing meth. I grew up in just middle class, but a lot of them got into doing drugs and meth and all that stuff. Where my addiction was fishing. I decided I was addicted to the bite, and to this day, I've never stuck any drugs of any kind ever in my body. Ever. I'm as sober as it can be. It was because my addiction was fishing.
There's no greater harm than a bite.
Yeah, I mean that's my addiction my whole life. I have addicted personality like everyone else, but I was addicted to that bite. And I got into hunting at one time, and that got me. That was my other addiction: hunting and fishing. That was what was everything to me. I didn't have time to drink or do drugs because all my mind was thinking hunting and fishing.
It's in perfect harmony with our DNA.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back 3 million years, that's in our DNA. So what we're doing an activity that's familiar with our muscle memory, if you will, or our embedded DNA, and it's just such a natural fit, and it's completely to the core of our beings, which you don't see today. It's all screen time and all this other stuff. So it's like when you're out there fishing and hunting, you are living life to the fullest.
Yes, I absolutely. It's taken me places that I would never have saw before, and experiences and all that kind of stuff of what fishing and just the outdoors in general does for you.
Well, and do me a favor and give JoJo a big hug for me afterwards, and just let her know how much I appreciate everything that she did to help you to get to where you are today.
Yeah,
doing it as a team, that is so cool. It's just what it's all about. Yeah. It's what the sport's all about.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's one thing we go by is like, after years of doing this and just constantly hearing, I took my kid fishing for the first time, he caught his first fish, or my wife likes to fish now because the hookup baits are so easy to use. Hearing these stories over and over again, we finally came to the conclusion of like, we manufacture memories.
Yep.
I mean, we manufacture memories, and we're making memories every day for people by making lures that are so easy to fish. It's like, and that we are so proud of that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being on the show today, gang. We're going to get going. I got a lot of stuff to do before the big live show tonight. So thank you, Chad. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Well,
anytime.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it.
And gang, if you don't watch another show this week, have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Right. And happy Thanksgiving to both of you guys.
You too, Chad. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. All right, gang.